So, a very warm welcome to all of you to the Women's Day special. Today's topic is going to be karma. But before we begin this interesting topic of karma, we're first going to look at Queen Kunti. Queen Kunti is considered to be an exalted devotee of the Lord. We have to keep in mind that the Lord is her nephew. And when she was born as Pritha. And later on, when she was given up and was adopted by one of her uncles, Kunti Bhoja, she gets the name of Kunti. So originally, she was born to the Yadava chief by the name of Surasena, and he gave her the name Pritha. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord calls Arjuna Partha. So the son of Pritha is called Partha. So this Pritha was adopted by Kunti Bhoja, who did not have any children. Subsequently, he gives her the name Kunti. Therefore, we generally know her as Queen Kunti. So when she was growing up, when she was in her teenage years, Durvasa Muni comes to visit, and she offers very nice seva. She was well versed in the scriptures on how to receive a great rishi, a great muni, and because she took care of him so nicely, she actually receives a boon or a benediction from Durvasa Muni. He gives her a divine mantra. She's not sure what and how that mantra works, but being very young and unaware of what she is about to do, she simply invokes that mantra, and before you know it, she has invoked the sun god Surya Dev. That results in her getting a young child, and that child we know by the name of Karna. Because she was so young, she did not expect something like this to happen to her. She was just testing out a mantra. She ended up with a male child. So to avoid social stigma for bearing a child out of wedlock, she was compelled to give up the son in order to safeguard her honor. That does not make her any less of a devotee. There is a saying that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. Every saint may have done things that were unsaintly before they became a saint. Similarly, even if you consider yourself a sinner today, it doesn't mean you will not redeem yourself and become a more perfect human being in the future. So after she gets married, and when she had the choice of marriage, she selects Pandu, the king of the Kuru dynasty, as her husband. However, her marriage to Pandu was disturbed when Pandu brings in a new wife by the name Madri. She's the princess of a province called Madra province. So Madri becomes the second wife of Pandu. And some episode transpires where Pandu is cursed that if he attempts to have an intimate relation with his wife, he will be cursed to death immediately. So, receiving these curse, he decides to retire to the forest with both his wives, Kunti and Madri. And when Pandu calls for Kunti, she employs her mantra, and thus she has 3 sons using those mantras 3 times. She gives birth to Yudhishthir, Bhima, and Arjuna. Later on, she shares this mantra with Madri. Madri also invokes this mantra, and she bears twins by the names of Nakula and Sahadev. So Pandu leaves his material body soon thereafter, and Madri steps into the funeral pyre of her husband. So she leaves with him. So now Kunti has to assume the responsibility of taking care of not just her sons, but also her stepsons. And she decides that the forest is not the right place to raise young children. And being intelligent, being very wise, being very shrewd, she decides to go to Hastinapur, the capital of Kuru, to make sure that all 5 children get access to the kind of education that they need as sons of Kshatriyas. So, like this, Kunti Devi endures many, many difficulties in her life, along with her sons. She provides good counsel to her sons. For example, she asks Bhima to marry Hidimbi, although Hidimbi is a Rakshashi. And through some misunderstanding of words, Draupadi ends up, the princess of Panchala, ends up with 5 husbands instead of 1. So once Indraprastha was set up as the capital, Kunti continues to reside in Hastinapur. She tries to cultivate a relationship, a harmonious relationship with Gandhari. Prior to that, she meets with Karna and encourages him to align with the Pandavas. But Karna refuses. And she begs and pleads with Karna that he should spare all her sons, of course, with the exception of Arjuna. And once Yudhishthir Maharaj takes on the throne after the battle is fought and won, Kunti decides to retire to the forests by herself, and eventually she leaves her body. But after the war was won, Yudhishthir Maharaj requests Lord Krishna to stay with them for a longer while. And so Krishna stays and spends some time in Hastinapur and Indraprastha. And eventually Lord Krishna says, the time has come for me to leave. I have to head back to Dwaraka. And therefore Krishna boards his chariot. And at that time, all of the Pandavas are accompanying him. And Mother Kunti offers prayers. So there are 25 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 1, Chapter 8, offered by Kunti Devi to Lord Krishna. And when you read these prayers, although we may not have time to go through all of the prayers, all of the verses, 25 verses today, you can certainly read it later on to understand how much Mother Kunti understood transcendental knowledge. How did she know that Lord Krishna was the Supreme Lord? how she was mystified by some of the Lord's pastimes when he was a young child, how he protected her and her sons time and time again. So we will look at some of those shlokas today so you can see the exalted position of Mother Kunti. So for those who are not familiar, you can type Veda base in your browser. When you type Veda base, you will come to a page like this that has all the books. These are all the e-versions of the books that Srila Prabhupada has written commentaries to. So you can see Bhagavad Gita is there, Srimad Bhagavatam is there. So since Kunti Maharani's prayers are in Srimad Bhagavatam, we're going to go into Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, 18,000 verses. So Canto 1 is all about how this whole cosmos was created. So we're going to go into Canto 1 and we're going to go to Chapter 8, which is titled Prayers by Queen Kunti and Parikshit Saved. Earlier chapter was the son of Drona was punished. And then he comes to seek vengeance by trying to kill the child that is occupying the womb of Uttara. And Uttara prays to the Lord to save the only child, the progeny that is remaining, because Ashwatthama has already killed the children of the Pandavas. So all that is left is Abhimanyu's child in the womb of Uttara. So they have already experienced intense pain and suffering. Draupadi has lost her sons. So they have completed the funeral rites. All of that has happened, all of that has transpired. And eventually the war is over. The Ashwamedha Yajna is performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, and he ascends the throne. And soon thereafter, Lord Krishna is preparing for his departure. So at that time, he's ready to leave for Dwaraka. And Uttara is running towards him in fear. And she asks the Lord to protect the son, the child in her womb. Because Ashwatthama has released the nuclear weapon. So anyway, all of that is taken care of. Then we come to the section where Kunti Devi begins to offer her prayers because the Lord is about to leave. So this says, thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi, addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. So here is Kunti's first offering to the Lord. So in the first 3 shlokas, she's glorifying Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord, as the controller, as the enjoyer, as the worshipable object. So Kunti Devi says, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. So the Lord, now how does Kunti know that the Lord is there as Paramatma within each one of us? And also the Lord is there pervading the entire universe in his various potencies, Shakti potencies. Yet she says, you are invisible to all. So the Lord pervades everything, but nobody can see that the Lord is pervading everything. So Mother Kunti is speaking transcendental knowledge here. She's speaking philosophy. Then she says, being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are eternally irreproachable factor, covered by the curtain of deluding energy. She says, my dear Lord, you are faultless. But because the karmis cannot see you as Sri Krishna, they think that you are an ordinary human being. So she says, you are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So when you get onto a stage and you're playing a certain part, you wear different types of makeup, different clothes. So you may look very, very different than your original self. So similarly, people who do not believe in God and do not have faith in God, they do not see God even if He's there right in front of them. In the sense that they may see Him physically, but they don't see Him with their heart. With their consciousness, they're not able to recognize the position of the Supreme Lord. To them, He looks like an ordinary mortal. So hence, Kunti is calling such people foolish. Now the Lord Himself has said the very same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. So then Kunti Devi says, you yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. So she's telling the Lord, by your mercy, the Jnanis and the great pure devotees are able to see you, they are able to experience you through the performance of bhakti yoga. But what about my own position? I am just an ordinary woman. So she says, how then can we women know you perfectly? Which means these sages, these pure souls had access to transcendental knowledge. And her question was, but what about us women? They know you perfectly, they understand who you are. But how can an ordinary person like me really understand you? I am not even a devotee. So you see, the mood of a devotee is they never consider themselves to be devotees. They always consider themselves striving to be a devotee. A devotee never says, I am a devotee of Krishna. They always say, I am trying to become a devotee of Krishna. Because that's how humble they are. Because by proclaiming yourself as a devotee of the Lord, you've put yourself on a very, very high platform. So a genuinely pure devotee of the Lord will always say, I don't know Krishna. Prabhupada used to say, I don't know Krishna. Prabhupada has written more than 80 books about the Lord. And Prabhupada is saying, I don't know Krishna. I only know my Guru Maharaj's instructions. That was the humility that Prabhupada had. Although Prabhupada has seen Krishna personally, there is a wonderful pastime that happens with Prabhupada in India. I'm not sure where this was. I think it is in Ranchi, but I'm not sure. So, Srila Prabhupada, some devotees were woken up from their sleep because they heard mridanga being played very intensely. And they were wondering, who is this who's playing the mridanga so late at night? Let's go find out. And when they go in, they see Prabhupada is spinning around, dancing in that room all by himself, seeming to be in such ecstasy, playing the mridanga. And Prabhupada's disciples notice that he has this beautiful kadamba flower garlands around him. The garland is so long, it is reaching beyond Prabhupada's kneecap. And the kadamba flowers are huge. Kadamba flowers are very, very fragrant. They look like yellow tennis balls with little needles. I mean, these are not needles that poke you, but it looks like a porcupine ball, but it's extremely fragrant. And the devotees could smell the fragrance. So they thought, okay, Prabhupada is in some deep ecstasy. So next morning, they asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you are wearing a garland. This is not the season for Kadamba flowers. The Kadamba flowers only flower during a few particular months. After that, they don't flower for the rest of the year. So they asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, where did you get this garland from? Because the garland is not in season and it is so fragrant. We've never ever smelled such a fragrance before. And Prabhupada didn't say anything. So the disciples of Prabhupada persisted by asking him, no, please tell us, Prabhupada, where did you get the garland from? Because it's not the flowering season. And Prabhupada just put his head down and he said, last night when I was doing kirtan, the Lord came and he put this garland around my neck. And by the time I could bend down to offer my obeisances to the Lord had disappeared. The Lord had vanished. So Prabhupada has personally seen Krishna. He was garlanded by Krishna. But Prabhupada was so humble. He didn't want to reveal this. So somehow or the other, the disciples pried it out of him. So great devotees will never say that they are great devotees. They will not even acknowledge themselves as devotees. Yeah, my request is kindly everybody be on mute since we are recording the session. Thank you. So then there is a couple of famous prayers here. Some of you may be very familiar with these shlokas, where Mother Kunti says, Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. The translation of this shloka is, let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other cowherd men of Vrindavana, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. So, how is it that Kunti Devi knew that the Lord decided on his own to come as the son of Vasudeva and for the pleasure of Mother Devaki? And at the same time, he came also to please Nanda Maharaj. Not just Nanda Maharaj, but all of the Vrajavasis, including the cows, including all of our senses. So Kunti Devi is glorifying the Lord because he chose to select Vasudeva and Devaki. And then he chose Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda to be their child, to grow up under their protection. In the next shloka, Kunti Maharani is glorifying the Lord. So normally when great devotees glorify the Lord, they begin at his lotus feet. But here Kunti Devi is going to glorify the Lord's abdomen first. Then finally Mother Kunti will come to the lotus feet. The reason for that is that she did not want to embarrass her nephew, Krishna. In terms of age, she was much older than Krishna. She was his aunt. So as not to embarrass Krishna, she begins at the navel and then moves down. So acknowledging the fact that there was an age difference and culturally speaking, it would not be appropriate for her and nor would it be comfortable for the Lord to have her glorify his lotus feet first. So such sensitivity. So in this particular shloka, Kunti Devi says, Namah Pankaja Nabhaya, Namah Pankaja Maline, Namah Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankajangrahye. So here Kunti Devi is saying, my respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. So she is describing the beauty of the Lord. You will notice in a lot of poetry and songs written in ecstasy glorifying the Lord, all the writers will always compare the Lord to a lotus. No matter which part of the body, it is like a lotus, because the lotus is considered to be a perfect flower. So every part of the Lord's body here is compared to the lotus. So later on, Mother Kunti tells Krishna, you know, you rescued Mother Devaki from the prison, from the wretched Kamsa, but you did more than that, my dear Lord, for me. For your own mother, you did less than what you did for me. So here in this particular shloka, she says, O Hrishikesha, master of the senses and lord of the lords, you have released your mother Devaki, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. So Mother Kunti cannot understand how is it that the Supreme Lord did not protect his own mother's other children, yet he came to protect her children repeatedly. Not just her children, but herself. So the Lord did more for her and her children than he did for his own mother. So she is astounded by the Lord's inconceivable mercy towards her and the Pandavas. And therefore she says, my dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashwathama. And then the most glorious portion of these verses is verse number 25, where Kunti Devi says, I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So in this one shloka alone, you can understand the stature of Kunti Devi. At no point in time does any devotee of the Lord pray for calamities. I am sure none of us will go in front of the altar and ask the Lord to give us more troubles. We will do exact opposite. But here, Kunti Devi's fear is that now that the battle has been won, there is nothing left to, no more troubles for them. And her fear is that if Krishna doesn't send calamities her way, she will forget him. So that she doesn't forget him, she petitions the Lord, you keep sending calamities my way, because at least then I will be attached to your lotus feet. I will never let go. And when I don't let go of your lotus feet, that's when I will actually see you. And she says, my Lord, Your Lordship can easily be approached by only by those who are materially exhausted. So how does Kunti Devi know the topmost of transcendental knowledge? That when you're fed up with material things, that's when you are going to pursue spirituality. When you realize that everything that you are chasing seems like a waste of time, and you're spending an inordinate amount of time, energy, and resources to chase material things, that's the day when you'll say, enough is enough. I need to pursue something much higher. So she says, you can be easily approached, but it is easy to approach you when someone is materially exhausted, where they are ready to pursue the path of spirituality. So Kunti says, one who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Even if you are very sincere, Kunti Devi says, as long as you are attached to your wealth, to your education, to your beauty, to respectable lineage, such a person cannot approach Krishna. Not with sincerity, because they are still very much attached to titles, right? So she says, my obeisances are unto you who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are the master of the monists. So Kunti Devi is revered and is venerated as one of the Panchakanyas, the five maidens. She embodies female chastity, and it is said that her name alone possesses purifying qualities. She is considered to be very mature, someone who can think far ahead, and someone who is a very dutiful wife. So, this is the exalted position of Mother Kunti Devi. We can understand just from the prayers how knowledgeable she was in Shastras, how she understood the position of the Supreme Lord. And with that, we'll come to today's topic called karma. You see, in all the time when Kunti was suffering along with the Pandavas, she never once asked, why me? My dear Krishna, my sons worship you, they adore you. My dear Krishna, I am your devotee. Why are you repeatedly sending us difficulties? What have we done? You know, so there is not a single whisper from either the Pandavas or Mother Kunti or Draupadi, why are we suffering? They just tolerate it because they know that the Lord has his plans for them. And as long as that they are attached to his lotus feet, that the Lord will always ultimately protect them. So before we begin our topic today, actually, I'm not sure if I'm sharing the right slides. So give me a second. Pull up the right slides. But before we begin, let's offer our most humble obeisances to our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And we should also recite the Pranati Mantra of Srila Prabhupada. So let me share that so we can all recite it together, because we want to take the protection of the Guru Parampara before we actually dive into scriptures. So, Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nidvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. So we're going to begin with some questions. So those who want to answer the questions, you can unmute yourself, raise your hand, we'll call your name. Those who want to answer the questions in the chat, feel free to do so. So here are the 4 questions. Why do we go to school? Why do we go to the doctor? Why should we go to the temple? And why should we chant the holy names? So would anybody like to try and answer these questions? Please just raise your hand. Yes, Lalita Mataji, you want to unmute yourself and tell us why
Hare
do
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just I'll tell what I feel. Why do we go to school? That's हम इसलिए जाते हैं कि वो बचपन में हमारे माता पिता घर में जो सिखाते हैं, जो भगवान के बारे में सिखाते हैं, वो या कुछ और वो सोचते हैं कि ठीक है, हम स्कूल भेजा बोलो तो बाहर के दुनिया कैसा रहेगा, कैसा सबसे वार्तालाप करना पड़ेगा, वो सिखाने को मिलेगा, सीखने को मिलेगा. और why do we go to doctor? Actually जो हमारा हम शरीर को मुख्यत्व देते हैं, तो इस वक्त तो जब शरीर में कुछ खराब होता है, कुछ दर्द होता है, तो हम डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं ताकि हम हमारा शरीर थोड़ा स्वस्थ हो जाए. और तीसरा हम why should we go to temple? इसलिए जाना पड़ता है क्योंकि उधर बोलो तो वो वाइब बोलते हैं, तो क्या कुंभाभिषेक वो सब करने के बाद वो हमेशा उधर मंत्र चैंटिंग होता रहता है, तो उसके लिए घर में भी पीस मिलेगा, घर में हमारा पूजा रूम में भी पीस मिलेगा, लेकिन उधर जाने से थोड़ा और ज्यादा मंत्र सुनने को मिलेगा और उधर का वातावरण भी थोड़ा अलग सा होगा. फिर why should we chant the holy names? ताकि हमारा मन शुद्ध रहे, हमारा मन को शांति मिले. इसके लिए मेरे ख्याल में बस जो मैंने सोचा वो बोल दिया, मालूम नहीं कि गलत है कि सच है. हरे कृष्ण.
हम देखेंगे गलत है कि सच है, हम देखेंगे अभी. Very nice. Thank you very much for sharing your views.
Mataji, there are others who have put on the chat saying,
oh, wonderful. You can read that.
School to learn, then doctor to get treated, temple to offer prayers to the Lord, and chanting holy name to get close to the Lord. That's what Madhumita Mataji says. Then to learn, get well, to pray, chanting for peace of mind, again, to gain knowledge, treat illness, be grounded. They will go to temple to be grounded, have positivity in our life is why they chant. Then Shruti Mataji says to learn new things, to get rid of disease and get well, to worship and feel peace.
Very nice.
So two other Matajis have raised their hands also.
I will request Shweta Mataji to give short answers so that we can continue with the next set of slides. I'm sure you're eager to.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, in very short, if I have to say, then maybe all of it leads us to the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being of ourselves.
Okay.
Whether it is going to the school, you are learning, the holistic development ho raha hai. And ultimately, when it comes to the chanting of the holy name, our spiritual well-being is taken care of. So in all the 4 places, our mental, physical, and spiritual is taken care of. That's why. Hare Krishna.
Okay, very nice perspective. Aruna Kumari, Mataji, you want to add anything quickly?
Yes, ma'am. Why do we go to school? Is to learn, and doctor will get treatment, and our body. Temple for we go to a temple for peaceness, And chanting mantra is to remove the negative and be positive.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Thank you. Very nice answers provided by everybody, including the ones that we just read in the chat. So yes, why do we go to school? To learn something, to gain knowledge. Why do we go to the doctor? We go to the doctor to heal ourselves, especially when we are sick. We don't know what is the solution. Our human physique is so complicated that not a single doctor can cure all of your ailments. So imagine what a what a complicated machinery that Krishna has created, that nobody can understand this body, that you have doctors for different body parts. So you have to go to a specialist for a cure. You have your cardiologist, you have your ENT specialist, you have your ophthalmologist, you have pulmonologist, so many different specializations. That means the body is so complex that not one single doctor can give you the cure for everything, for all of your ailments. So imagine if your physical body is so complicated, can you imagine how complicated your mind must be? What about all of our mental stress? Yesterday we said the challenge that we have is primarily the virus of the mind. It's our mind that creates so many problems, and the anxiety and everything else that we experience in the mind also influences our physical health, isn't it? So if we're not mentally well, it may also impact us physically. Of course, it's going to impact you spiritually as well. So the reason we go to the temple is to learn. So the temple is a school, and the temple is also like a health clinic. You go to cure your mental ailments. Because the temple is supposed to be the house of the Lord. So any Vishnu, Lakshmi Narayana temple, any of the Vishnu temples are considered to be the residence of the Supreme Lord. They are equivalent to Vaikuntha. So yes, you should go to Vaikuntha to learn, and you should go to Vaikuntha to get rid of all of your mental anxiety. So the word mandir means it's the residence of the Supreme Lord. It's the embassy. You know how if you want to go to another country, you have to go to their embassy. Similarly, if you want to go to Vaikuntha, the embassy of the Lord is the temples in which the Lord resides. So in the embassy, you are protected, correct? So let us say an American citizen is in India, he commits some crime. The Indian government cannot arrest him as long as he is inside the American consulate. They cannot touch him. Even though the consulate is on the premises of the nation called India, because that consulate belongs to another country, the rules of that country apply in that consulate. Similarly, when you go to the temple of Lord Vishnu, you are protected. Maya Devi cannot touch you as long as you are in the temple. Even if you've committed the worst of crimes, as long as you are in the temple, she cannot touch you, right? Because you're in the spiritual embassy of the Lord. That's the reason why we go and spend time in the temple. Why should we chant the holy names of the Lord? Because it cleanses the dirt and filth that is there in your consciousness. The more we chant and the intensity with which we chant, the more we cleanse ourselves and feel that we are having an intimate relationship with the Supreme. So what is karma? So karma is viewed differently by different people. So if you look at it from two different lenses, you will walk away with two different understanding, although the understanding is exactly the same, but your perspective will be different. So let us say if you look at karma from the point of fear, I do come across some people in my classes who are very afraid of karma and their past life, etc. So if you look at karma from a point of fear, like for example, whatever you do, you better be very, very careful because you're going to suffer the consequences. So karma is the consequences. So that means consequence means good and bad, right? It's not that we are always only doing bad things. We may also be doing a lot of good things. Even for that, there is going to be a reward system. So essentially, karma is all about reward and punishment. If you do good, you'll be rewarded. If you do bad, you'll be punished. So essentially, this way of looking at it is it creates fear in you. Maybe it is a healthy dose of fear, so you're not attracted to doing adharmic things. But what if you look at it from a different perspective of love? That the Lord actually loves you so much. So karma is a gift that brings you lessons for your soul's personal growth and will continue to bring these lessons back around until you have learned them. Sometimes when we experience suffering, there is a deeper purpose behind that suffering. You are supposed to utilize that suffering to elevate your consciousness and come to the spiritual platform and look at things from a spiritual perspective. And as long as you don't do that, you will continue to experience those struggles in life until you do it. Right? How people treat you is their karma. How you respond to their treatment is yours. What you put out will come back to you in unexpected ways. Therefore, you should give only what you don't mind getting back. And the karma cleanse says we should be grateful, we should act with love, we should mind our motives, we should watch our attitude, and most importantly, if you believe somebody has wronged you, it is better to forgive them. Because if you don't forgive them, you have to take birth again. Not forgiving somebody for what they did to you causes you to be entangled with them. So you will have to take birth again. So either you have to take birth again to take revenge, or you have to take birth again to learn how to forgive. So better learn how to forgive in this lifetime. So Krishna is saying karma is actually a very, very complicated topic. So in these two shlokas, Krishna is saying, Kim karma kima karmeti kavayopyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajñatva mokshase shubhat. Krishna is saying here, Arjuna, even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. So Krishna is saying even the great intelligent souls who are steeped in scriptures, even they don't know what is karma, what is akarma. But Krishna is saying, but don't worry, I will explain these things to you. Once you've heard me very carefully, Arjuna, then by understanding how this karma works, you can be liberated from all kinds of misfortune. So the next shloka, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanah, akarmanascha bodhavyam, gahana karmano gatihi. So here the Lord is saying again, the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. So Krishna has introduced three terms in the shloka, and we will understand what these three terms are shortly. So Krishna has used the word karma, he has used the word vikarma, and he has used the word akarma. So vikarma, Krishna is saying, is forbidden action. Karma is proper action. And akarma is inaction. Now, inaction doesn't mean you sit quietly in a corner and don't do anything. That's not what inaction means. Inaction has a very different meaning. You find that out shortly. But before we dive deeper we have to ask ourselves the question. I'm sure many of us have pondered this. Why is it that at birth we are not all equal? Even two babies born at the exact same time will not have the same horoscope. How is that possible? So that means horoscope, you cannot depend on the horoscope all the time, because the horoscope cannot account for so many other things. It can only act as a guidance. So why is it that someone is ultra rich and someone is dirt poor? Someone is very beautiful, somebody is not so beautiful. Somebody is healthy, strong, vibrant. Somebody is weak and unhealthy. Why is it that all of us have different starting points in life? So if all of us are running a race, it's like some people are in the 20-meter line and some people are in the 50-meter line. Some people are starting at the 80-meter line. You may ask yourself, is this really fair? What did I do that I had a different starting point than you? Well, that's because of your past scorecard. There is a scorecard being maintained from your previous births. So it is that scorecard that determines where you start in this life. So when we see these obvious disparities in life, we immediately think, sometimes incorrectly, that the Lord is partial. He's causing some people to suffer. He's allowing some people to enjoy themselves. The Lord is watching his own children suffer and he's not intervening at all. He has the power to intervene and stop the suffering. Why does he not do that? Well, that may be one of your questions. Is he a cruel God? Does he enjoy watching you suffer? Not at all. Actually, the Lord is more anxious to have you back in his house than you are anxious to go back to him. The Lord always cares more for you than we care for ourselves. That's how loving the Lord is. So if we have to take this example and apply it to the material world, when there is a court case going on, all the judge does is apply the law fairly and impartially. And by applying the law, he will come to a decision who is victorious, who is defeated. As per the law, not as per his personal preference for either or one of the parties. So sometimes the judge imprisons someone, sometimes the judge awards someone. But that doesn't mean that the Lord is playing favorites. That doesn't mean the judge is playing favorite in the courtroom. So why these different treatments? It's just the same law is being applied and a decision is being made based on who acted as per the law and who violated the law. So the person who violated the law gets a sentence and the person who upheld the law may get rewarded. So the universal laws also function the same way. Divine justice also functions the same way. Except even in the material planet, we don't know what are all the laws of the land. There are too many laws when it comes to finance, when it comes to traffic and how you drive, when it comes to your licenses, when it comes to your taxes, when it comes to building and construction. I mean, our law books may be occupying thousands of rooms. How is it possible for us to know all the laws of the land? Yet, the government says, when you say, I didn't know this law, they say that is not an excuse. You will still get thrown in jail if you violate the law. The government doesn't care whether you knew and whether you read about these laws or not. They expect you to use your intelligence. So similarly, the Lord expects us as human beings to use our discriminatory power based on the scriptures to understand what is right and wrong. and not to violate his laws. Therefore, if we violate the Lord's laws, we will suffer. If we stick within the boundaries of the Vedic scriptures, then we will be rewarded. So imagine a traffic signal is red and you decide to take a risk and run the red light because you've looked around and don't see a cop. But much to your dismay, the cop follows you. Suddenly he appears out of nowhere and he asks, "What happened? Did you not see the red light?" And you as the driver say, "No, I saw the red light. I didn't see you." In the sense that I took the decision to violate the red light because I didn't see somebody in authority who could stop me and punish me. You see, when it comes to universal laws, there are witnesses. Although the Lord says He is your best friend, He is your well-wisher, He is impartial, He treats everyone the same way. Nevertheless, if you violate, you will get punished, right? So based on our activities, we will have particular reactions. And generally, these reactions come to you through the Devatas, through Mother Durga. So Krishna says, I am seated in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma, and therefore I am the witness. I'm silently watching the Jivatma doing various things. I'm aware of his thoughts, I'm aware of his actions. So you cannot escape. You can probably escape the laws of the land because there are so many devious ways in which we can hide our wrongdoing from our government. But with Krishna's government, you cannot do that. He's monitoring everything. Every little thing is being documented somewhere. So who decides for us how we are going to be punished? So the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, under his supervision, Mother Nature decides what kind of body we should take, what kind of eyes, what kind of nose, what kind of skin, what kind of mouth. Everything is decided based on two things: what we've done in the past and what desires we are carrying. Which means in our life today, our activities and the way that we are living our life today, we are already deciding what kind of body we're going to take in our next life. So the human form of life is very, very rare. So rare that there are only 4 lakh different species of human beings. But there are 80 lakhs of other species. So depending on your desire and your past karmic reactions, there is no guarantee that you will take a human life again. You could go into the bird form, you could go into the trees form, you could go into the aquatics, you could go into insects. So Krishna says, when you come to this material cosmos, which is considered to be a jail for us, we have to change clothes, you know. In the material world, when you've done something wrong and you're imprisoned, you're not allowed to wear your civilian clothes. You're given special set of clothes to tell everybody that you violated the laws and therefore you are wearing a certain set of clothes. So similarly, Krishna has a certain set of clothes for you if you violate his laws. Except he doesn't have 1 or 2. He has 84 lakh of them. For different kinds of desires, different kinds of punishment. Or you could say a different kind of bodies so that you can exercise your free will and try to enjoy yourself. Yes, the butterfly is very beautiful, but that doesn't mean the butterfly is not suffering. So every Jivatma is trapped in the body, suffering. You may ask, why these 84 lakh species? What's so special? Because the Jivatma has 84 lakh different types of desires. To try and fulfill each of those desires, we have to experiment with so many different bodies. Therefore, such a large wardrobe Krishna has given us. So human life is so rare that we have the intelligence to discriminate and do the right thing. Therefore, when you are in this human body, use this human life to practice spirituality so that you can get out of the cycle of birth and death. You can stop this cycle of transmigration of the soul from one body to another. So what is that activity that you should do to eventually go back to the Supreme Lord? So Krishna talks about the third kind of deed, which is neither pious nor sinful. That is called Sukriti. So what is Sukriti? When you perform any devotional service to the Lord with love, you accumulate Sukriti points. Just like you're accumulating Papa and Punya, you can also accumulate something called Sukriti. And Sukriti comes from devotional activities, from Bhakti. So what is the meaning of the word karma? We heard 3 different words and terms used by Krishna. But the word karma itself has multiple meanings depending on the context in which it is used. One meaning of the word karma is actions. Another meaning is reactions for what we've done. So the entire system of actions and reactions is also called karma. And good deeds, good actions are also called karma. And the correct word to use there is actually sukha. So now we're going to come to the 3 terms that the Lord used. Karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma means you are strictly following the scriptures, and when you obey the laws of the Lord as per the scriptures, then you will get punya credits, good deeds. If you do the exact opposite, which is called vikarma, then you will start accumulating papa credits. So as long as you have punya credits or papa credits, you have to take birth. Because if you've done so much punya, the Lord has to reward you. And how does he reward you? He says, I will send you to the upper planetary systems. I will send you to the moon planet. You will enjoy yourself there. And then you will, after your punya credits are exhausted and comes to 0, you will come back and take birth again. The same thing happens with your papa credits also. Krishna says, I will send you into lower species of animals. Then again, you have to transmigrate up to the human form. Or I will send you to the lower planetary systems that like Atala, Vitala, Patala, Talatala, Rasatala. So if you accumulate punya, you have to take birth again. If you've accumulated papa, you have to take birth again. So once your papa credits are come to 0, then you'll come back to the material world. It's not like after you've exhausted your papa credits, you are going straight to the spiritual world. No. You take one more birth and one more risk of committing all kinds of karmic reactions, accumulating karmic reactions. Therefore, Krishna tells Arjuna, watch what I'm saying. You perform spiritual activities, because if you do a karma, which actually gets translated to inaction, it is actually action and inaction. There are no reactions for you when you are a devotee of Krishna. So Sukriti means spiritual activities that takes you closer and closer to Krishna. So if you want to stop the cycle of birth and death, then you need to increase your Sukriti. And the Lord is so kind and so merciful. Even if you do a little Sukriti, he wipes out all your past sins. He brings it to 0. So what was Arjuna thinking? If I fight, I will kill. If I kill, I'll become entangled in sinful activities. If I don't fight, I will escape sinful reactions. So Krishna says, no, 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 you've got it wrong. Krishna will tell Arjuna, not fighting is a greater sin than fighting and killing. Because you see, for a Kshatriya, if he has to uphold dharma, he has to fight, and sometimes it will be against his own family members. But he has to put an end to adharma, even if it means it's his own family. So in this case, Krishna was telling Arjuna, if you don't fight Arjuna, you will suffer severe repercussions of sins, because there's no greater sin for a Kshatriya than to walk away from a battle. Better you fight and kill. But if you do it as per my instructions, then you will be in the karma platform. So anything that you do for the pleasure of Krishna, including fighting for the pleasure of Krishna, gets you sukriti. So in our life, we need to remember that not everything that's going to happen to us is going to be good. In the sense, we'll not have a good experience. But everything that happens to us can be for our ultimate good, right? That karma from the framework of love, that the same thing will keep happening until you learn your lesson and elevate your consciousness. So ultimately, karma is there to help you evolve spiritually. It's there to wake you up and say, what are you doing? Stop these nonsense activities. Start by taking shelter of Krishna. Chant the holy names of the Lord. Come to the temple often. Do seva in the temple. Attend Bhagavad Gita classes. Attend Bhagavatam classes. All of this is Sukriti. 42 of us are doing Sukriti right now by attending this class and hearing from the scriptures. You are collecting your Sukriti points. So Krishna, as I mentioned in an earlier class, is not at all focused on karma. He is focused on dharma. Karma, he says, we have to tolerate. We don't have a choice. We can't control what happened to us in the past. What we did in our past lives, we cannot go back and change things. It's too late. But there is a solution. When you take shelter of Krishna and begin your process of surrender, Krishna will wipe away all your past karmic reactions. Because even in our land, only the president can commute or pardon your sentence. If you have a death sentence, the president can change it to life in prison. If you have life in prison, the president can release you because he feels merciful. That means in all of the universe, among all the gods that we all worship, there is only one personality that can pardon you. And that's Lord Krishna. Because moksha is under the control of Krishna. He has the exclusive rights to it. Lord Shiva can reduce your sentence, but he cannot free you from this jail. The only person who can unlock this jail cell and free you out of his own causeless mercy is Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna says, instead of focusing on karmic reactions, you do karma yoga. He says, all of us have to work, right? Arjuna, you have to work. Your duty as a Kshatriya is to fight and uphold dharma. So how can you give up your core duty of upholding dharma and talk about walking away to the forest and etc. etc. So Krishna in chapter 3 is telling Arjuna, all of us have to work to maintain individual order and social order. If I choose not to do my duties and responsibilities, and pretty soon my neighbor will not do his duty and responsibility, and pretty soon there will be chaos in society because nobody wants to follow any rules or regulations. Rules and regulations are there to protect us. Who is sitting in the jail cell? The person who violated the law, right? Who is sitting free? The persons who have followed the laws of the land. They are free. So similarly, Krishna says, at the minimum, you should work to maintain your individual order and social order. Moreover, work has to be performed as a sacrifice to even maintain cosmic order. If we don't do our duties and responsibilities, even the cosmic balance will change, will get disturbed. There is an interdependency between us and the devatas. If we do yajnas, they will benedict us with rain and sunshine and nice weather, etc., etc. Then Krishna says we have to work to set an example for others. If Arjuna walks away from the battle, then the citizens will take a leaf out of Arjuna's book and say, well, if the king cannot perform his duty, why I should perform my duty? The topmost man is derelict in his duty, why I should care? So leaders have to do the right thing all the time. That's the pressure that they're under. Lastly, Krishna says, we have to work so that we can develop ourselves spiritually. But each of us will grow at our own pace. Even when it comes to the spiritual life, some of us will make very quick progress, some of us will take some time, some of us may decide, this is not for me, and some of us may say, this is for me and I want to dedicate myself wholly to this. So when you're undergoing tough times, the question to ask is not why are these things happening to me? The question to ask is what can I do about it? Because trying to figure out the why is not going to help you. Okay, let us say I did something terrible in my past life. I want to know why I am suffering today. And if Krishna personally comes and tells me, you are suffering because you did this nonsense 10 lifetimes ago, how is it helping me today? Because then I will start fighting with Krishna. Why you didn't punish me in that life itself? Why you waited till now? These questions we will ask. We are very intelligent. We think we can challenge the Lord. So if you look at suffering, there is suffering that has an immediate cause. There is suffering that has a remote cause. And there is suffering. Ultimate cause for suffering is our disconnection from God. If I put my hand in the fire, I'm going to get burnt. So I will very quickly learn fire burns. I need to remove my hand from the fire. So sometimes this instant karma may take 24 hours. You eat bad food, it will take 24 hours before you have an upset stomach. Yeah. But what about your past karma? You did something in some previous life for which you're suffering now. So this is called the remote cause. So instant karma is like putting your hand in the fire, you withdraw it. Quick karma will take some time, like indigestion. Delayed karma means you abuse your body with alcohol and drugs. Eventually, you will suffer. But then, Krishna says, when it comes to karma, the only thing matters that you should understand is you should rectify the fact that you're disconnected from me and that is why you're suffering. Therefore, the ultimate cause for our suffering is we have abandoned Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is saying, don't worry about your past karma. Rather, learn from it and understand what you can do about it. So the question we typically ask in classes like this is, why do bad things happen to good people? And we all think we are all good people. I didn't do anything. I didn't harm anybody. I'm leading my life very nicely. I never caused any harm, any distress to anyone. Why am I suffering so much? That's because we don't know what we did in our prior lives. And it's a good thing we don't know, because then we can rectify it through proper actions. So when you are suffering due to immediate cause, what you can do, you can take preventive measures, right? You can learn how to protect yourself. This is called mitigation. Using your intelligence to mitigate your suffering. So if I keep eating outside food and if I keep getting indigestion, then I have to mitigate that suffering by stopping and changing my eating habits. But let us say I did something way in the past for which I'm suffering now. Then I have to tolerate the consequences. If I violated the law and the government has fined me and it's a massive fine, I don't know how I'm going to pay it, but somehow or the other, if I don't pay it, I'm going to go to jail. Then I have to figure out, yes, I'm suffering, I have to tolerate it and use whatever intelligence Krishna has given me to see how I can address that situation. So whatever you've done in your past life, Krishna says, if you're suffering the consequences of it in this life, learn to tolerate, because you can't go back and change what happened. Rather, observe those good people. What do they do when bad things happen to them? What do the wise people do when bad things happen to them? They strengthen their relationship with Krishna. They strengthen their connection with Krishna. So if you want to get rid of all of this suffering, then you have to abandon this place. You have to emigrate to a different place. Because the ultimate cause for your suffering is you have left the spiritual world and come here into this jail cell because you didn't want to be with your father for whatever reason. So if you want to end suffering, Krishna says you have to come back to me. You have to come back to your original home. So apply for that visa by practicing spirituality and go back to Krishna in this life. But we also have to be sensitive to how we understand and use this term karma. Karma should be used to understand our own suffering. But when somebody comes to you and expresses their deep suffering, you shouldn't tell them, oh, it must be your past karma. That's why you're suffering. No, when somebody else is suffering, we are here to sympathize, empathize, console them. At that time, we have to remind them what their dharma is. So when someone is experiencing bad karma, our focus should be on the dharma of the relief giver. I have a responsibility to give some relief to that person, to whatever capacity that I can, than to make that victim feel even more victimized by calling out the fact they must have done something in the past. That is why there's. But when we ourselves are suffering, we should understand, yes, I don't know what I did, but I must have done something which is causing me to suffer like this. So we have to use karmic reactions to judge ourselves, but to be benevolent towards others. So how does Krishna actually curtail your free will? We said Krishna has given you independence. He has given you free will. You can do whatever you want. But the more free will you have and the more intelligent you are, you will not misuse the free will. But when you violate the laws of the Lord, then Krishna will curtail your free will but will not take it away entirely. And an example given in these classes is as follows. So let us say you have tied a cow to a pole with a rope. The length of the rope determines the area of activity and freedom that the cow has. Shorter the rope, shorter the area of freedom. But the cow can still move. So the more we violate the laws of the Lord, the more the Lord will take away some of your free will. And that can be very, very frustrating for us. we will be fighting it with all our might, not recognizing the Lord is actually trying to teach you a lesson. You need to surrender to Him. The Lord will never take away your free will completely, but He will curtail it. As we said, those who are law-abiding citizens are walking free. They understand the consequences of violating and taking advantage of the freedom that the government has given them. So as long as they follow the rules and regulations, they are free. The minute they violate, they are punished. Krishna operates in the same way. Actually, we are all doing copycatting of Krishna only. From the spiritual world, we learned all this and we are replicating it here in this material cosmos. Right? Because Krishna already has the system in place. So for us, rather than living in fear of karma, we should have faith in Krishna. So instead of being karma conscious, Krishna is saying you be Krishna conscious. Karma conscious is not going to help you whatsoever. It's not going to help you feel better. It's not going to solve your problem. But being Krishna conscious can alleviate your karmic reactions. How can you be Krishna conscious? Well, you can learn to work for Krishna and on his behalf. So an analogy that Prabhupada uses is the soldier, when he goes into the battlefield, he is fighting on behalf of his nation. And if he does a wonderful job of killing his enemies, when he comes back, that government rewards him with medals for his bravery. That same soldier, when he kills his neighbor, that same government will come and throw him in jail. He is killed on the battlefield, he is killed here also. But there is a difference in the killing. One killing is authorized, the other killing is unauthorized. For the killing that is authorized, he is rewarded. For the killing that is not authorized, he is punished. So therefore, Krishna says, you have to work for me. When you work for me, you're under my protection. Do you understand now what Sukriti means? Sukriti actually means working for Krishna. If you're working for Krishna, you don't have to worry about the consequences. You just focus on working for Krishna. Krishna is in charge. So Krishna is saying, do your duty, don't focus on your destiny. When the results come, you should accept the results and don't agonize and agitate about the results. So have faith in Krishna, worship Krishna, and all of your fear of karma will dissipate very easily. So this is a very interesting topic today that we covered. I'm happy to take your questions now.